Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. As much as I want this channel to be a listening experience for you guys, I also want there to be a discussion aspect to it. So that's what we're going to do tonight, and we're going to get into some discussion. So tonight's topic is going to be 5 influential albums. What that is it's not necessarily my top 5 influential albums of all time. It's going to be 5 albums that I think are influential in some way, shape, or form. So, with that being said, let's get started on the list. Alright, the first one I've got on my list is Van Halen 1, which, if you've heard Van Halen 1, it speaks for itself. There's probably most of you watching this video that I don't need to say a word about this album to, but I find it to be a very influential album, and here's why. Obviously, Eddie's leads are absolutely incredible and mind-blowing. If you've never heard anything like it, it sounds like it's totally out of this world. For instance, also, some of the riff work on that album is absolutely incredible. Not only are they groovy, but they also carry a melody, which is just insane for a guitarist that says he doesn't know any music theory. It's just mind-blowing.
I live my life like there's no tomorrow. All I've got, I had to steal.
And then the last part of this album that I find very influential, which maybe not a lot of people pick up on, is since Van Halen 1 is essentially the quintessential Sunset Strip album, quintessential hair metal album. I also find a very large punk influence on this album. Not so much the rest of Van Halen albums, but on Van Halen 1 specifically songs like Atomic Punk and On Fire, you can definitely see a bit of the punk thrashy influence in the riffs, such as
I am a victim of the science age. A child.
Alright, now the next album I have on this list is a bit of a departure from the first one. This next album is What's the Story, Morning Glory, an album that came out in, I believe, 1995 by Oasis. And this album is on the list not so much for, incredible virtuosic musicianship, as it is on this list for their songwriting skills. This album is an absolute clinic in songwriting. It's crazy. Songs such as Hello.
I don't feel as if I know you. You take up all my time.
Wonderwall.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you.
She's Electric. Champagne Supernova.
Cannonball, where were you while we were getting high? Someday.
And so much more on this album. If you've never heard What's the Story, Morning Glory, and you've ever just heard the hits Champagne Supernova and Wonderwall, you need to dive into this album. It's a great rock album from the mid-90s. Alright, so moving on from there, we have another departure from both the first two albums. This next album is 171170 by Elton John. Now I put this album on the list because this is the first live album I listened to that encouraged me to go listen to other live albums. I was just absolutely blown away. Now, it's a bit of a cheat because I'm pretty sure he's in a studio scenario with a very limited audience, but nonetheless, it's live and it's a fantastic live performance. Songs such as Bad Side of the Moon.
It seems as though I've lived my life on the bad side of the moon. To stir your drinks and sickness still.
Songs such as 60 Years On are just absolutely epic and insanely emotional. And the album even has a couple great covers. There's a Beatles cover, I don't quite remember which one right now, but there's also a Rolling Stones Honky Tonk Woman cover, which if you've never heard the song by Rolling Stones, you would assume it's an Elton John song, judging by how well he did it here. It's insane. If you've never heard 171170, you need to check it out. Alright, so moving on and continuing with the theme, we're going to do something totally different again. This one's actually an EP. It's not technically a full album, but nonetheless very interesting. Something that I feel needs to be heard and talked about. And that is Newborn Sun by Chon. Now, if you've never heard Chon, I highly recommend going to check them out. The thing that attracted me to this EP in particular is the clean guitar tones and the lightly distorted guitar tones they get. They're just absolutely beautiful, and it really made me realize that that can be cool, and you can write cool riffs with a clean/lightly distorted tone. They also demonstrate that they're absolute riff machines, again with a clean tone, which is not usually something you associate together, good riffs and clean tones, and they do it beautifully, and especially in songs such as Bubble Dream. Alright, now the last album I have on this list is Live and Loud by Ozzy. And I know what any of you are thinking right now, especially if you're Ozzy's fans, the only live Ozzy album I need is Tribute. And while that might be right, and I was in that camp for a long time, listening to the Elton John album I mentioned earlier, 171170, opened me up to the ideas of going and listening to other live albums. And this is one of the ones I gravitated towards naturally because I love Tribute so much. And honestly, after listening to this a couple times through, Zakk Wylde is an insanely underrated guitarist. Like, I already viewed him as an underrated guitarist. Listening to this again is just... the man needs way more respect than he deserves, even though he already gets a ton of respect. I believe this album came out in 1993, and even though he's not the direct guitarist right after Randy Rhoads, you can tell Zakk Wylde is clearly the heir apparent to Randy Rhoads, and his covers of Randy's songs on this album are just spot on. They're perfect. He does a great job. He also does a fantastic job with Jake E. Lee's stuff. It's just, Zakk Wylde's just hugely underrated, that's all I can say, and he does a great job on this album. He even makes some of the Sabbath tunes his own, songs such as Paranoid. He displays his guitar god skills in things such as the aptly named guitar solo. And lastly, of course, with his, first big hit with Ozzy, Miracle Man. Alright, so that's been 5 albums that I find very influential. Hopefully you find some of them influential. Hopefully you haven't heard of some of them. Hopefully you check some of them out. Comment some of your favorites down below. Let me know what you think about the albums I chose. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And have a good day, YouTube.